Good evening. Thank you so much for joining us tonight at our Saline Middle School webinar to help answer questions for the transition from 6th grade to 7th grade. I know many of you may have already met me. I am Michelle Chekowitz. I'm the principal here at Saline Middle School, and I have with me an outstanding panel tonight that we will introduce in just a few moments. Many of you are likely sitting at home thinking, I can't believe we're talking about 7th grade already. Wasn't it just yesterday that I was thinking about transitioning my child to middle school? And here we are, already planning for the year ahead. I have to tell you, it has been an amazing year here at Saline Middle School. We had a focus on returning to normalcy and bringing back events that had been gone for some time due to the pandemic. And it's been terrific. We brought back the student staff basketball game, which I'm sure you heard a lot about. Kids had a great time at that. We even just had our snowball middle school dance over the weekend, and I heard great things about the dance as well. Our students were incredible. Our PTO, our planning team, our student council did an amazing job to put on a fun event like that for our students. So thank you for all of that support. Thank you for sharing your wonderful kids with us each day, and thank you for joining us tonight as we talk about what 7th grade might look like. Some of the areas that we'll talk about tonight, you'll get to meet our office team. We'll talk about the differences and similarities between 6th grade and 7th grade. We'll talk about our positive behavioral supports and interventions. We call that our PBIS. And we'll talk about our commitment to diversity, equity, and inclusion. We'll review schedule differences and locations, and we'll talk about what elective choices will be available to your 7th grader. We'll talk about the process of scheduling, what the differences and similarities are between Summit Learning and Google Classroom, clubs, organizations, and activities, what our BYOD, bring your own device expectations are, some important dates to mark. We'll answer questions, and we'll talk about how to follow us on social media. So it's going to be a jam-packed night. And again, thank you for joining us.
Hello, I am the proud assistant principal here at Saline Middle School. I want to introduce a few people that most of the 6th graders should know by now, and if not, hopefully you get to know them by the end of the year. If there's anyone else on this webinar that isn't currently a Saline Middle School student but are looking for more information about 7th grade, this is a good time to introduce everybody that we have working in the office and around the office to help support our middle schoolers here. So we do have Mrs. Chekowitz. She introduced herself earlier as our proud principal. I am the assistant principal. We have Mr. Jones, who's one of our dean of students. We have Miss Parrington, who is the other dean of students. We have Miss Stephanie Johnston, our administrative assistant, and Miss Renner, our building coordinator. Those two lovely ladies mentioned at the end with Miss Fordyk are the ones that are up in the front of our main office, and they're really the ones running the show. They do a fantastic job, and they are kind of like dispatch, and they bring in everybody into the office and they get them the help they need, and it's pretty amazing. We also have Mr. Lupi, our community liaison. He is a retired police officer, no longer on the force, but he helps us as a community liaison and helps out. And we have two wonderful counselors here in our building as well, Mrs. Chambers and Mr. Stimmick. Mr. Stimmick is on this call. He's waving right now. And he is, I think, maybe wearing the same shirt as he was in the picture with the same lanyard, which is pretty fantastic. Nope, he's shaking his head. No, he is not wearing the same shirt. We are very honored to have two social workers also in our building, Mrs. Smeltzer and Mr. Benedict. And they are all, working together to provide some social and emotional support for all of our students. Not on this call, but Lori Dawson. She is our secondary activities coordinator. So if your child is currently in a club or interested in being in a club and you need more information, or if your student wants to start a club, she's in charge of all of the clubs and organizations and getting them hooked up with spaces after school and all of that. We do have Brian Puffer. He is on this call this evening as a panelist, and he is our director of community education. And And we'll go over some slides that delineate what is community education versus what is athletics. Ashley Mantha is our athletic director. She is not on this call, but we're very lucky to have Mr. Pike, who is the assistant athletic director. He is on this call. And then also Tiffany Harris helps out in their office. And so we're very lucky to have such a strong athletic program here that we'll be discussing later this evening.
And we are proud of a lot of things at Saline Middle School, but what we are most proud of is our incredible students. And today I am very, very excited to announce that we are joined by M. Habrecht and Kate Gilchrist, who are going to be answering questions from a student perspective. They can be responding in chats, or if they can pop on to answer your questions verbally as well. But they are incredible kids, and they are here to help see things from a student perspective as to what your child might experience as they transition to 7th grade.
Here at Saline Middle School, we do follow a PBIS model, so the positive behavior intervention supports. And here at the middle school, we go by the 3 pillars of being respectful, being responsible, and being kinder than necessary. We are working through some PBIS rewards, and we want to continue on with that in a more robust way. But currently, we are doing students, not student of the month, but we're honoring all students that have these pillars of success being shown in the classrooms, and the teachers are nominating them, putting them in a slide, or not a slide deck, but a sheet. And then their information that's positive gets nominated and put on a board outside our cafeteria, in addition to receiving a letter from one of the administrators here in the building. Also, we just recently started a PBIS club to get the students more involved and having a voice in what we do for positive behavior intervention.
And here at Saline Middle School, we believe and have a commitment to diversity, equity, and inclusion. And many of you may know that as a district, we've really been committed to improving along in this process. So one of the pieces that you'll see in our handbook and throughout your child's experiences here at Saline Middle School is our statement about our commitment to diversity, equity, and inclusion. And I'll take just a moment to read it, because we really stand by that, and we want to make sure that every one of our students and families is valued and respected. Saline area schools support students in becoming ethical and responsible citizens. Students demonstrate this attribute when they see beyond themselves to the needs of others, contribute to their community, promote social justice, take responsibility for the environment. I need you to go back to that slide and demonstrate respect, empathy, and compassion. I'll pause just here. When they talk about the attribute, they're talking about the attributes in our Saline area schools compass, or our profile of a graduate, it's often called. These are the skills and attributes that we want our students to graduate and send off into the world as they finish their K-12 education here in Saline. Our statement continues. Saline area schools embraces diversity and inclusion as it strives to provide a variety of perspectives for students to consider. All students in Saline area schools should be able to see themselves in the curriculum we offer. Further, all students should be able to reflect and consider alternative viewpoints that exist within our society. And in order to provide this, the district encourages the use of resources from different backgrounds and topics. If a student or family is sensitive to any particular topic that might arise throughout the school year, they are encouraged to discuss this matter with their teacher, and an alternate activity will be provided. Thank you.
All right, now we're moving into some nuts and bolts of the scheduling here at Saline Middle School. So in 6th grade, if you're a student listening, you obviously are aware of what I'm about to say. Parents probably have an inkling of some of this might resonate with you. All students in 6th grade will have typically one of 2 math classes, everyday math or pre-algebra. That will be determined in March in Heritage, so that when they're assigned here, the math placement will already have been decided. All 6th graders have an opportunity for recess every day, unless it's inclement weather. The core classes they go through besides math are social studies, science, and English. That includes reading and writing. During the middle part of their day, right around their lunchtime, they will participate in specials. So they will have to pick between choir, orchestra, or band. And then on their off band or off orchestra, off choir day, they'll also go through 4-week rotations of art, world cultures, and PE. And another highlight is they get to choose where they sit at lunch. So that's a lot of kids like that. I'm not sure how they're doing things at Heritage, but that's one of the highlights of 6th grade. You get to sit where you want. Moving on to the 7th grade. 7th graders typically are either in a pre-algebra class or an algebra 1 class, and that's determined based on their math scores, NWEA and whatnot during their 6th grade year. Rotating classes. This will be the first time your students will experience rotating classes, and I would like to reach out to my student panelist, Kate Gilchrist, and she's going to give you a quick overview of what rotating classes means.
Thank you. So rotating classes we have 70-minute classes, and we have 6 minutes to move between classes throughout the day. Those 6 minutes are called passing time, and it's when we move from one classroom and teacher in the building to another. This is probably, at least for me, the biggest change from 6th to 7th grade, but it is definitely not as scary as it seems. It's actually very easy to get the hang of, and I am saying that as a person who gets lost extremely frequently. Teachers and older students will always be able to direct you to where you need to be if you end up getting lost, which I did, but it was fine. Teachers are very understanding about that sort of thing, and you do get the hang of it in the first couple of days. The pod system that they have in the 7th grade is very helpful for making sure that you're where you need to be. Also, I promise that even though you have less time with your teachers, all of your relationships with them are just as good as they were in 6th grade. There is absolutely no difference there, and all the 7th and 8th grade teachers that I know have been fantastic.
Thank you, Kate. I appreciate that. Along with math, and while they're rotating throughout the day, your student will have science, social studies, and English. And the last class they'll have is, electives, and they'll have 2 of them. And to speak about what AB schedule means, the wonderful M. Habrecht will break it down for you.
Thank you, Mr. Stemrick. Hello. So for AB scheduling or AB rotations, you can either choose to keep your band, orchestra, or choir music, or go into something else, but you also get to pick another choice. So for me, I chose band, and 7th grade, actually I did art. And so every other day you switch, whereas 6th grade, you do the same thing for a while. You get the same steady schedule. So like today I had band, tomorrow I will have drama. And then it just goes back and forth every day. So on A days, you have your A day elective, and B days, you have your B day elective. It seems really complicated because that's not what you're used to, and it's another way of switching classes, but it's not as complicated as it seems. And as soon as you get the hang of it, you're like, oh, this is kind of cool. You kind of get more classes in than you ever thought you would.
Thank you, Em. And speaking as a parent who had children come through here, it wasn't until I actually got in this building working that I understood what A and B schedule meant. I gave up when my kids tried to explain it. I just couldn't handle it. So it really is quite easy. Thanks, Em.
All right. Well, Em and Kate, you did a great job explaining your experiences as students and what it's like to feel like. Here at Saline Middle School, we know that people learn all kinds of different ways, and I, for one, am a visual learner. So what we've done here on this slide is kind of made a picture of exactly what you explained. What does it mean, and what does it look like to rotate through your classes and to experience your specials, or your electives? So here, as we take a look, the 7th and 8th grade is the first row. So you see the first 71 minutes of the day, they're in their first hour class. Then there's a 6-minute passing period, and they go to their second hour class. You'll notice that the third hour there's a long period of time. That's because third hour is when we have our lunches. So that time period includes the instructional time as well as the lunch period, which we'll talk about in a few more slides. And then again, 4th hour and 5th hour. So those are the rotations of the classes. And as you take a look here, here's a sample AB schedule. So while we have a 5-period day, 4 of those are core classes, And then there's a spot for one elective. We know our students have their option of 2 electives, so we alternate. So if you have elective B, for example, on September 1, by taking a look at that chart, you'll see the B in the box that lines up with September 1, kind of like Battleship, find your September and the number 1. So on a B day, your student goes to their first elective choice. Then it looks like there are some blank boxes. Those are no school days. There's no school on those days. It's probably the Labor Day holiday. And then you look at September 6th, and the next day is an A day. So then your child's next elective would be on an A day. So they're alternating between the two. The next day is a B day again. So they go back to that first elective, followed by an A day. So their elective classes alternate back and forth. This schedule has the entire year mapped out in advance, with all of the school days that we know are going to be no school days, like vacations and holidays, are taken out. If there is somehow a snow day or an act of God day or something that causes a school cancellation, we skip that day and stay with our calendar. So even if school was canceled, for example, tomorrow for a snow day, then we simply skip it and we follow this calendar with what the next scheduled day was, A or B.
Mr. Simic brought up a good point, and if you have any questions or things that you want to ask as we're presenting, feel free to put those in the Q&A. I'm going to cover the map here for just a moment. You should have seen, if you were in the building, yellow maps throughout. The difference between 6th and 7th grade is typically we keep all of our 6th graders on the carpet in the front of the building unless they are going to lunch or their electives. When they go to 7th grade, they do have more access to the building, and during those passing times, as much as we would love to say that you have to stay in the 7th grade pod only, they do venture out, walk around, and make it back to their 7th grade classes here in the red zone on the map. In addition, our science classes are in the middle of the building between the cafeteria and what you would see here on the green zone. And then there are a couple, the electives are still in the back of the building. So a little bit more free reign. They aren't on, we can't keep them on the carpet any longer when they're in 7th grade, but it works out well. And just like the students indicated earlier, that you may get lost once, but you won't get lost again, and we'll take great care of you.
Jumping ahead, if you recall, we talked about that extended third period, which included both instructional time as well as a lunch period. We have 3 lunch period. Our first lunch is 10:34 to 11:09. That's for following our schedule. That would be primarily for our 8th graders. Then we have our second lunch, 11:09 to 11:44. That would be a split between 6th and 7th graders. And our third lunch, 11:45 to 12:20, which is again a split between our 6th grade and our 7th graders. It's important to note that there's a link here to access our Saline Schools food service page on our website. There you will find menus. You'll also have the ability to pay your child's lunch account in advance because they access that similar to a debit system. And you can also fill out the form for free and reduced lunch for eligibility there. Remember that we are back to typical pricing for our lunches. So if you think you may be eligible for free and reduced lunch, please go to the website and complete that form. Thank you so much.
And as mentioned earlier, your student will have an opportunity to pick, as Em said, from several electives, and they'll end up with 2 electives for the entire year as 7th graders. Some of those electives that they can choose from are band, orchestra, choir. There's foreign languages such as Spanish, also German, PE, lifetime fitness. There's also art, multimedia, computer science, and woods. Some of these classes have an additional year when they go into 8th grade. So some students opt to take woods for 2 years, or multimedia 1 and multimedia 2. So you'll learn more about that when your students go into 8th grade. However, at this point, these are the electives currently offered. There might be another one added to the mix in the next couple of weeks, but this pretty much solidifies what we'll be offering once again at Saline Middle School. And just to give you an idea of what a student might typically do, Em, could you tell us, you sort of mentioned earlier what you did in 7th grade with electives. Could you remind our participants and viewers what you did and what you're doing this year?
Yes, thank you. Okay, so I wanted to take band from 5th grade through 8th grade. I wanted to stay in music because I really enjoy music. So I said, I'll take band. I'll take band in 7th and 8th grade, which leaves me with 2 other electives to choose. So if you pick one of your music choices, band, orchestra, or choir, that's what you'll get. So 7th grade, I chose band and art, and I had so much fun with that. But I'm another creative person. So this year I took band and drama. So because you only get to choose 2 electives, and so something I'm looking forward to in high school is choosing a few more. But in middle school, it's cool. You get to branch out. You can stay doing your art and PE. And I think you did world studies this year too. And then 7th and 8th grade, you get to choose and you have more opportunities to go into things that you haven't done before.
Thank you. I mean, just to be clear, if you didn't want to take band in 8th grade, you changed your mind after 7th grade. Would you have to take band in 8th grade?
No, you do not. You can change. You can do. You can pick another elective. I had a friend who did 2 different electives for 7th grade and then came back to band for 8th grade. It's kind of all up to you what you want to do, how you want to work your schedule.
Awesome. Thank you very much. And I was remiss in not mentioning drama when we went over electives to begin with. So to Miss Glatz, I apologize.
Awesome. We do have a couple of Q&As, so please stay tuned for the answers to those questions, or we will be answering them. Some of our students are actually capturing those. We do have a wonderful video about our electives that we're going to show at this time. And so if you have questions as this plays, you can feel free. And I'm going to press play. Thank you for watching that wonderful video. We're very lucky to have Ben Goodman in our district that does a lot of promotional work, and Anna Britnell, they work together to advertise and or work to get out information in a very interactive way. So we're very appreciative of that. And I'm not going to play it again. There we go.
All right, back to scheduling. So the week of February 20th, Mrs. Chambers, my fellow colleague counselor, and I will be going to the lunches to talk to students about information that will be coming at the end of the week in regards to the electives that will be offered, the process by which how they can sign up or choose their top 2 electives, and a heads up to both them and you as parents about the email that will come out on Friday, February 24th. And then that email will indicate and share all the links with regard to how to choose a student's top 2 electives, also how to choose the preferred learning platform, whether it be Google or Summit. And it's pretty straightforward. So where it says electives options, please choose up to 5, there will be a part where they will rank their top 5. There's 2 different processes. It's all part of the same information, though. They're going to choose their top 2 because that will help Mrs. Chekowitz and Ms. Gunther plan next year's schedule, but will ultimately want to know their top 5 because it is impossible to give all students their top 2 electives. It just will not work out that way for many, many reasons. So look for that information the week of February the 20th. And Kate, I would like to put you on the spot here. Are you ready?
Absolutely.
Okay, Kate, I am curious. I just gave parents a whole bunch of information about what to expect that week of the 20th. Thinking back to last year, the first year we implemented this process, can you speak to the ease or the lack of ease or what that process was like choosing all the things I just mentioned?
Oh no, it was incredibly easy for me. I did receive my top 2 choices, French and choir. If you do music, you will get your top choice just because they make it a priority to do that, which I find incredible. One thing I did though is on the form, I selected to do Summit. I wanted to change it to Google Classroom in May or June or so, and I was freaking out. But I talked to Mr. Stimmick, lots of emails, very long process. Actually, no, it wasn't. It was maybe a week or so, but it felt very long. We figured it all out. It was absolutely fine. And I ended up in Google Classroom with the best teachers. Summit has great teachers too. But I was really just looking for a change. So I am so grateful that that happened. And if you do make a mistake and you wake up in May thinking, oh my goodness, what are we going to do? It's going to be fine. It is a very easy form to fill out.
Thank you very much, Kate. I appreciate that.
Awesome. I think that's a perfect segue for me to discuss the differences and similarities between Google Classroom and Summit. So most of you on the call are probably current 6th graders or families of current 6th graders. So you know that there is a difference that exists out there between the Summit and the Google platforms. And some of you may be Google kids and some of you may be Summit kids, or you're just on this call thinking, well, all I've ever known is Google, or I did Summit this year and maybe I want to go back to Google. So you have lots of options. You're not locked in. As a 6th grader, if you started on Summit and you want to go to Google, that's okay. If you're in Google now and you want to go to Summit, that's okay too. We do offer that choice. A lot of similarities. The curriculum is aligned, and so the curriculum doesn't change. The platform is different. So we're still meeting all of the curriculum needs that you would have as a 7th grader. There is project-based learning in both platforms, standards-based learning, curriculum standards through Salina Schools are the same. District and state assessments are the same, and all of that. So if you look at this slide deck, these are all the similarities. And then the next slide is the differences. And so what Summit does hone in on a little bit more are habits of success. So breaking down what are those soft skills that students need to be successful. There is a mentoring component to it where there is some built-in curriculum that is geared towards mentoring. Now, mentoring still happens in the Google classrooms where teachers are just constantly mentoring kids and helping them out. But within the Summit platform, it's a little bit more formalized with like some guiding questions. In addition, all 7th and 8th grade teaching teams sometimes happen and sometimes don't, but for Summit right now, it does give them that teaming experience. Grades entered in Power School vary between Summit and the Google platform. So Google teachers are entering in grades into Power School often. If you're on the Summit platform, if you're not familiar with it, you can actually see grades in real life all the time and see your progress. And so teachers aren't always entering grades into Power School. So as a family, deciding whether or not you want to look at 2 different platforms for grades is something different because our electives are still going to be on the Google platform regardless. So even if you have a Summit student, your elective teachers will be using Google. There is platform access for both. You can request it for either Summit and or Google Classroom. We always tell families though that the easiest way to see the platform is to have your student log in right in front of you. And that's the same for Google and for Summit. That way you're seeing it from their perspective and you're seeing what they need to be working on or what assignments they haven't turned in or what they need to continue to work on. And then students are experiencing independent learning in both areas, but it's a little bit more so in the Summit. And so if you have additional questions about Summit and or Google Classroom, feel free to reach out. We have a wonderful team of 5 teachers currently in 6th grade teaching Summit. And then we have 4 in 7th grade and 3 in 8th grade. So lots of experts here on the differences between Summit and Google, but we just wanted to give a quick overview if you're thinking about either changing your mind or sticking with a path. Also, just to note, there is no Summit at the high school, and so they would be accessing only the Google platform at the high school. But that doesn't mean that they wouldn't have a great experience here on Summit. So just to give you a little bit of more information on that.
Mrs. G, I'm just going to jump in right here. I am so happy to hear about Kate's experiences and how we were able to make all of her hopes and dreams come true from switching when she wanted to make that change, as well as getting first and second elective choices. However, as one of the very hardworking people behind the scenes, I really find it really important to say that that does not always happen. And here's why. We work very, very hard to try and make our students happy and make sure that we can match what they have requested. It's not always possible. And many of those reasons are sometimes classes are not aligned with offerings. Also, sometimes classes are full and we are bound to contractual student numbers and we cannot overfill a classroom. So that is another constraint that we operate within. And then also, we work really hard to be efficient with our schedule and to take a look at what students want and have requested and try to make those opportunities available for them. If students change their mind and want to switch later, there may not be space available, and we may not be able to move a student who has selected Summit to go into a Google Classroom if there are not seats available, as well as vice versa. So I do want to make sure that you know that we have an incredibly hardworking team that will absolutely explore all of those requests, but it is not always possible. And I just felt it was really important to say that. So thank you.
Hi, I'm Jeff Pike, and I'm representing the athletic department. And Ms. Mantha and I have put together just this one slide here, which hopefully highlights some of the differences that 6th graders might have as they enter 7th grade in terms of sports. Some 6th grader activities have been mostly through community ed, though there are a couple that 6th graders might have participated in, such as potentially cross country or wrestling. Now, as 7th graders, you're going to be doing everything on the screen here, these different sports seasons through the athletic department. And what that means is the fall sports season includes football and cross country and girls volleyball. Those will basically start like the first week or the first day of the second week that school starts in the fall. And of those sports, volleyball is a cut sport. The other two will take as many participants as are interested. There's really 2 different winter sports seasons. We have boys basketball, which runs through November and December, And then as you can see, there's two different sports that are in January, February, girls basketball and co-ed wrestling. Both boys basketball and girls basketball potentially are cut sports, depending on how many students try out for each of those seasons. And then the spring, basically starting the week after we get back from spring break, is the track season, which has a lot of people and a lot of different events and different things for students to try. If they like running, if they like some of the throwing and different sports like that, that's what track entails. The thing that we have switched to starting this past July and we'll be moving forward with, some of you might have experienced big teams, and big teams really is the electronic mechanism that houses all of our information. Gone are the days of you handing your student a paper copy of a school physical form for them to hopefully hand in. We do all of this electronically now. And what we'll do is we'll open this in July for the next school year. And you will be basically doing three things: the online registration, which includes some of the standard forms that parents would sign and students sign about rules and behaviors and things like that. You're also going to be submitting a physical form. And I don't know about everybody, but you might want to start to think about scheduling your athletic physical, because it has to be dated after April 15th for the 23-24 school year. And knowing how pediatricians' offices sometimes get full, scheduling that earlier rather than later might be something to think about. Once you have that, you're going to physically, you're going to take the physical and you're going to electronically upload that. And then the final step now is you are going to be subjected to some pay to participate fees. And these fees cover things such as coaches' fees, paying for officials, transportation, which hopefully we can offer more and more transportation to our events. All of those things are explained and linked on that registration checklist that Ms. Mantha had put together there. I've also put in the chat, if you have follow-up questions, since my email was in the earlier slide, if you have anything that you can think of, and hopefully we're going to see a lot of your students coming out for sports for the Saline Athletic Department. Thank you very much.
Jeff, if you can actually make sure that your chat went to host, panelists, and everyone, I can see it, but I want to make sure everyone can see it.
I will copy and paste that. Thank you.
Thank you. We also have Mr. Puffer on the call. Mr. Brian Puffer, you're up.
All right. Thank you for having me. So my name is Brian Puffer. I'm the Community Education Director. As you can see on this slide here, we have on the top is our fall, then it goes to winter, spring. And we offer an array of programs for 7th grade. Like Mr. Pike said, though, we did offer a lot of 6th grade programs. They do go into 7th grade. But one thing's important to understand, that the CE programs, community ed, are not covered by the pay to play fee. It is different. The reason is because the community ed programs are not school sponsored sports. The majority of the sports that we offer in 7th grade are usually run through parent run organizations or parks and rec departments. Can everybody hear me? Yeah, okay, I'm sorry, Scott, I think they're run through parks and rec departments or other organizations in different communities, but here, luckily in Saline, we're able to run it through our community ed department. So you can see on there, we have quite a few different programs that we can offer. At the very top, you'll see our website up there. If you click on that, or you have a chance for that, my contact information is on there, all the programs that we offer are on there. And also we'll have at the end of March, our summer guide coming out, which will have over 20 different youth sport camps that we offer that are put on by most of the varsity sports teams. So we're excited about that. And I will also put my email in the chat if you have any questions. And that's all I have.
Brian, one thing I would add is one difference that some of our 7th graders get tripped up on is if you were doing a sport through community ed, you may or may not need a physical. However, when you are taking an MHSSA, I think I said it right, 2 A's,
Yep, you got it.
You have to have a physical. So keep that in mind as you get older and do sports, you'll have to have that physical.
Correct. Thank you.
Okay, earlier we talked a little bit about what bring your own device means, and you probably had this conversation when your student was transitioning from Heritage to Saline Middle School in 6th grade, and now they'll be transitioning to 7th grade. So we do use two electronic platforms to access education, one being Google Classroom, which is online, and the other being the Summit Learning Program. So in order to do that, we request that students bring their own device to school. It's important to remember that for a bring your own device, that your device must have a keyboard. The iPads are not supported due to the way that the machine accesses that information. So it's important that they have a keyboard. We can support platforms, a Mac, a Chromebook, a PC, any of those things. It's also important to remember that these are 7th graders. So accidents happen. So think about that. These devices come with a range of different costs. We can support many from some that are much more affordable to others that are more expensive. So just remember that accidents do happen. Some 7th graders may drop or damage or step on or spill on or snack on or crumble on or many of the things that can happen to devices. And please know that when those accidents do happen, the school does not take responsibility for those items. So just think about those costs in that. If this provides a financial hardship, you can go to that middle school website that is up there and you can request a device to be checked out for the year for your student. It would be a Chromebook. And also on our devices, we also have some security updates that are accessible anytime your student logs into their Google email address or accesses any one of our Chromebooks. So Mr. Grossman, who is our Director of Technology, is here on this webinar, and he can talk a little bit about the security features that we have in place to protect your student.
Hi, good evening. So speaking to those security devices, we do use a couple of different platforms for security. One is the GoGuardian platform, which is used during the school day for classroom management. It allows teachers to see what the students are doing on their individual devices. This is not used after school hours or on vacations or days that we do not have school. Additionally, we are using the Securely Internet filter to make sure that while our students are using our Google accounts, whether they are on or off campus, that they are always filtered. We do have more information about this on the middle school website. So if you have any questions, you can feel free to go there, go to the BYOD reference, and there's your articles on Securely, GoGuardian, as well as links for how to pick the right Chromebook or other device of your choice.
All right, so the day will come this summer when your 7th grader is going to be very excited to pick up their schedule. We will be setting up a schedule pickup day. This day is different than our web day where students were asked to be there for several hours and go through the web experience. We've already transitioned those 6th graders to the middle school. And now we're looking at just a step up to a more secondary type schedule in 7th grade. So for the schedule pickup, you will be able to drop in during the schedule pickup time and day that's available. It'll only take a few minutes. You'll be able to walk the hallways with your student. They'll be able to find their classes. During that time, they also get their picture taken for the yearbook and for their student ID. But it is not an all-day event. You can drop in anytime during the scheduled time. So again, what questions might you have? When do I find out my schedule? We have not selected that date yet, but it's typically about a week and a half before school starts, which is in line with when students find out for our elementary students who their teachers are. We often have schedule pickup just about that same time. For 7th graders, do they have recess? Nope, our students are switching classes every 70 minutes. They have a 6-minute passing period to socialize and engage with their peers between classes. Sometimes teachers will select a special activity and take the class outside for an activity or an engagement that they're doing. But on a typical day, there is not a scheduled recess. Do I have to take a world language here at the middle school? There is a 2-year high school requirement for graduation, and we do offer an opportunity for your student to take language, but it's not mandatory. So they can earn up to one of their credits here at the middle school in language, but they can also wait until they head off to high school if they want to explore other elective opportunities. Do I have to continue with music? We have lots of options here at the middle school. And again, music is one of those options if they would like to continue, but they don't have to continue. They can explore another elective opportunity. And again, will I be on a team? Currently, due to our numbers, we do have a team for Summit students, and most students may have some common teachers, but we do not have teaming here at Saline Middle School at this time. What if I want to be on Summit, but my elective doesn't fit into that schedule? You have to make a choice. This is some of the tough things about growing up. Sometimes you have to make a choice. What is the higher priority for you? And again, what if I have an elective that only meets when the Summit teachers has planning? Well, then that looks like that'll fit right in your schedule, because when those teachers have planning, you get to go to elective. And the last question, we have a blank. When is the first day of school? They are currently finalizing our school calendar. It has not been released yet, but as soon as it is, we will certainly publicize that day, and you'll be able to access the year-long calendar on our district website.
You all have done a wonderful job putting in questions in the Q&A. If you want to answer or have any other questions answered, please feel free to raise your hand and I can let you in as a panelist, and you can ask it verbally or put it in the Q&A. And then Mrs. Chekowitz will wait a little bit and then she'll close us up.
Yeah, so thank you again for joining us. We are really excited. And honestly, I'm sure you're thinking the same thing that I am. I cannot believe we're already talking about next year, but we are. The year passes quickly. If you have a question that we are unable to answer, our email addresses are all right there. We're happy to respond to you. And if we don't have the answer right away, we will certainly do our best to get it for you. So we'll wait just a few moments and take any questions that come up.
I also see that you as a panelist have your hand raised. So if you have anything, just jump right in.
Yeah, so I was gonna say you offered your emails, but I was for all the students, if the students have any questions, like you can come up and ask me. I don't know about Kate, but you could ask me, you can email me, like students specifically, if you have questions that you don't feel like.
Thanks. And then if you haven't already started following us on social media, we do put out a plethora of information out on all of our platforms. And specifically what we have found people like is that we put out A days or B days for Monday, so you know what elective you're starting with for that week. And so those get posted on both Sunday afternoons and then also Monday mornings.
And I'd like to thank my incredible assistant principal, Mrs. G. She's done an amazing job this evening. I'd like to thank all of our panelists. They've really been informative and so helpful. Thank you so much for being so generous and giving up your time this evening. And of course, our incredible students, Em and Kate, thank you for joining us. Thank you for being here to help answer questions. You really, anytime given that opportunity, you really shine. And I just am so proud of you. Thank you.
And there was one question, is there a big trip in 7th grade like Chicago? So this year we will be going to Cedar Point. It's not a big trip, it is a day trip. And we don't know what is planning for the 23-24 school year, but we are definitely looking at having experiences at each grade level. All right, I don't see any other questions.
All right, signing off from Saline Middle School. Thank you so much.
Whoop, one more came out.
Okay.
Sorry. For Summit, are the teachers the same as Google Classroom? So does the same science teacher do both Google and Summit? No, they do not teach both platforms. So right now, our team for 7th grade for Summit is Miss Alyssa, Miss Samitis, Miss, gosh, I'm drawing a blank. Miss Samitis, Miss Alyssa, Miss Naz, and Miss Perry. And so right now the science teacher is Miss Alyssa, and she only teaches on the science, on the Summit platform.
I'm going to add a little caveat to that. And again, this leads back into why it's so important when you put in requests. We staff based on those requests. So assuming we have enough students to support 4 simultaneous sections of Summit, then that's what those teachers would be assigned. Assuming only 20 people want to have Summit or something, we would shift to Google Classroom. So again, our staffing model and our instruction is driven by your preferences, which is why when people want to make changes, it can be so difficult. So thank you so much. I hope that clarifies.
All right, I don't see any other questions. Have a good night.